Damon Scrignoli. So say hi, Damon, to everybody, and welcome.
Wow, thanks for having me. This is fun. I'm glad to be part of this.
Awesome. Well, Damon and I are what I would say is fellow healthcare nuts. We have worked a lot in healthcare marketing and sales, and I think we've seen this is being recorded on January 27th, so we've seen some news come out about United and Medicare Advantage and Humana, where I used to work. And so we'll touch on that a little bit, but we also actually want to touch on a little bit of some healthcare outlooks for this year. So we read a couple of reports. There's a great McKinsey report, which I'll get out in my newsletter, and also some Wall Street Journal articles about the outlook for this year. And so we're gonna talk about that and just get our perspective for marketing and sales and what we really think it means. So let's kick it off. Damon, you had a chance to read through this stuff. What were your initial impressions? And how do you think it applies to sales and marketing?
Yeah, I thanks for having me on. It is. I think it's going to be a wild year, and I think healthcare is always, obviously, we've been around this a long time. We don't need to say our age, but you and I have done this a while. Healthcare in the United States is complex, and it's going to be maintained complex. And I think people who call on us for help, you think of organizations that are selling to these different entities like pharma, like payers, like provider groups. I think the old playbooks of going about how they were going to get into those relationships, how they were going to market to those groups, and what you do so well, how they go to market, which is part of what I try to help. It's complex, and it's going to be harder because there's going to be less basically pieces of the pie to spend. So as their profit margins go down, as what we were reading about with the Medicaid rolls of that being tightened, UHC saying that they're projecting lighter earnings in the future years. These groups are tightening their belt. They're going to take less meetings with early entrants, startups. They're going to be less cautious of some of these cool AI plays, some of these things that solve really small fractional pieces of of something they do for health system, et cetera. I think that it's just everyone's going to be under this kind of microscope, and we're going to have to work a lot harder to get noticed, to garner attention, to get meetings, to make sure our value proposition's great, and that we're achieving really sustainable ROI for all parties. Because if not, folks are just going to kind of say, we're going to just stick with what we're doing for the next year, next 2 years, and we're not going to look at new solutions. What do you think about it?
I think it's great insight. Yeah, I can't argue with it. I think it's interesting because, McKinsey's report talks a lot about these healthcare software services, right? And to your point, they've been on a tear, right? In terms of growing share, obviously have healthy EBITDA. That's not the problem with software, but I think you're totally right. I'd be pretty suspect too. If I was a PE fund, I'd be pretty suspect. Like, am I going to invest in this right now? Like, is this the right time to invest? I'd just do a double take.
Yes.
And just make sure that, from a GTM perspective, they can get access, right? Some of these people are going to shut it down. If their margin is going down, I don't really think they want to take more calls from healthcare software providers, right? So I think that's right. I also want to ask you a little bit about, I just tore my ACL, and I know you've had meniscus issues in the past. And so, what was your experience like with the digital experience on all these systems and whatever? Are we in the promised land on these experiences? I feel like we're not, but I don't want to lead you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that you hurt yourself. So I don't know if your audience knows about that, but I don't want to give away your PHI. But I tore my meniscus a couple years ago, and here's what I would say about it, Akash, is we are in this, I don't know what percentage point we are, but we are unbelievably lucky because we have been in healthcare so long. We have had leadership roles. We've been lucky enough to surround ourselves with really talented people, and we can call our own networks for advice. So I laugh to my friends as I have these doctors and relationships on my phone, and I hope my family members never get diagnosed with cancer, but I have oncologist friends at this point in my life. And I had ortho friends. And so when it happened to me, my first call wasn't to my primary care physician or going to Google. I was able to call an ortho PA and get on a FaceTime. I mean, how incredible is that, right? And so
it's amazing. Yeah.
I think about this as, when you think about then the digital experience of this, I'm used to kind of the best of the best because I have these relationships. But then once you're in the system, it's a bit like a river or maybe like little rapids, and it starts going and then the rapids build. Is I went, did my scan. Agree, we need to do something about it. Okay, well, we got to get you in the portal. What's the portal? Now we're going to log into that. Now we're going to upload these records, right? And you're in immense pain. You're trying to figure out what you're going to do. And I think I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think I was in 3 or 4 different portals to get the one surgery done. That was before PT, Akash. And then, people were asking me questions of what happened. I tried to add my wife into those so she could see the records. Impossible. So I had the best care. I had an incredible orthopedic surgeon. He helps the U.S. women's ski team. But it's because I'm in this rarefied air where I know who to call. I need to ask. I can get all these things vetted.
But I think that's what it's turned into, right?
Yeah.
Like I think healthcare access has turned into who do you know? Who can you call? And I think, have we spent too much time on these digital experiences? And it's like they're not that influential, right? Like when you're looking for care, it's actually, I'm going to call someone and say, like, who did you get your ACL repaired? And they're just going to tell me, and then hopefully I can get in.
Yeah,
right?
there was a period a couple of years ago.
Right?
And you got great glasses on, so I don't know what brand they are, but there was a period, and I think I'm dating myself a little here, but it might have been a decade ago. And I was at this great coffee shop down in the Bay, like where a lot of the big movers and shakers go do meetings. Yeah. And I could kind of hear stuff behind me. I was facing the window, and people were saying, "We're the Warby Parker of XYZ in healthcare. We're the Warby Parker." And people forget, it's like, well, Warby Parker created this beautiful experience. And I don't know if those are Warby Parkers, but the groups, it's beautiful in there. It feels like a buying experience.
It's amazing. It's a great experience. Yeah.
Yeah. You injuring your knee with your family, or me doing, being a weekend warrior, doing a Nike training class that was over my head.
Over your skis. Yeah.
Over my skis, literally. It's not a beautiful experience. It's not a Warby Parker experience. We got to be able to, the companies who use us to get in front of things, and then if you even supersede that, is the groups who are thinking at scale, selling into CMS and HHS, or thinking about big state-based projects. Right, you're catching people at this really vulnerable time when they don't know where to go. They're reeling. They're scared about their earnings. How am I going to get to and fro to work? Right. We work from home. We're so lucky. But what if we took a bus to work and you've injured yourself? So they're not having this magical experience digitally and thinking about, I'm going to log in and someone's going to they're going to show a video of my knee and then this is going to happen. Nothing is pleasant about it. And when you're in these exclusive circles, whether it's private equity, whether it's venture capital, you kind of can trick yourself that we can make it a joy. I think we kind of tell ourselves that. I don't know if you agree with me on that, but
I think that's what I'm trying to figure out. What's the thesis here around what we're selling from a software perspective, right? Because if the business value was on the customer acquisition side or the branding side, I just have a hard time when you're dealing with an ACL reconstructive surgery, right? I just don't think that's. Am I going to go out there and find information? Certainly, but it's going to be a different experience for me. And I think what I'm also seeing is that a lot of the brands right now, if you're a provider, you're if you're a big hospital network, you're, let's say, a group of orthopedics, whatever it might be. Yeah. I feel like it's a bit of, I think the challenge right now is how do you differentiate yourself? Yes. Because it's become a sea of, now that there's so much consolidation where the providers are eating up the mom and pop shops, and there's less mom and pop, they all sort of feel the same. And I have to kind of criticize some work I did back in the day at Humana. But and the reason I say that is because we talked about center wow, like wellness centered on you. And that was a brand that we created. And I think now you go out there and you look at all these provider networks, that's exactly what all of them are saying. Yep. We're here to support you. We're centered around your health. Now, the challenge is like that's no longer differentiated. Right. And I think what I've found, at least in the care that I've gotten so far, was that the big difference, yes, if the digital worked, and I do have to say, like Illinois Bone and Joint, they did a nice job. Their digital system is connected. It was great. However, and that was awesome. That's part of like, okay, I'm going to stay there because I like it. But the biggest difference maker for them was like the people were great. Yeah. They took a little bit extra time getting to know me. They took a little bit extra time talking to me, and they know what that felt like, okay, this person cares about my treatment plan, took a little bit extra time. yes, the digital works. I don't have to worry about it. But that certainly wouldn't have kept me there if the care was terrible.
But let's even back this up a second, that you knew to go to that orthopedic group. And so let's be in somebody else's shoes just for a moment. I love that you did a shout out to Peachtree Orthopedics in Atlanta, Georgia. They were my group.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, I could have, if I'm just an individual and we are in a different industry, we are in manufacturing, you and I, we don't even really kind of understand the nuts and bolts, forgive me for the pun, of the manufacturing play, but it's, we just worried about making ends meet and being there for our kids. I don't know that we even got into the really great freestanding orthopedic group to then have this great experience. And so the more that, private equity companies, back companies can kind of put their shoulders back and almost, I don't know if it's a physical whiteboard or a hypothesis or brainstorming sessions with folks like us and their leadership teams, but it's really thinking holistically, like, we'll run this through a group like you and run a group like me. Now let's run this through for someone who's not aware of what a deductible is, or they're being paycheck to paycheck. How are they going to see this experience? And I think the more we can elevate these conversations just a little bit higher, I think we're going to do right by everyone, but we're also going to obviously create more earnings for groups. Things are going to be stickier, better user experience for everybody. So there are downstream effects as well as just kind of pleasantries, like you said, about the people who are making the moments happen.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, the orthopedic that I went to, he's my primary orthopedic, and then I have a surgeon. He's someone who lives in my neighborhood.
Yeah,
right?
Incredible, right?
His daughter is the cheerleader for the basketball team my son plays on. So it's just like, that's the way I got in, right? So, but that's not for everybody. I feel privileged to have that ability. I got in with a surgeon. I mean, I'm sure that's hard too. I've heard horror stories about getting in with a surgeon too, and so this is, a world-class surgeon.
Well, then after you're probably going to get a great recovery. Let's hope it's great. I'm rooting for you, and that you really have a great physical therapy group, and you're going to be on a fast track of all these things. And when we, when we see companies that say, like, I'm selling to an orthopedic surgeon group and it does this, it's like, well, what does it do that they need to unstick what they currently are doing, turn it off, or even remove a contract in many cases? And does it make that team that wowed you, does it get them to the top of their operating license? Does it empower them to be better, to serve more patients in a better manner, et cetera? We really have to just start thinking about these things in this tough financial environment of, it's got to wow people, it's got to delight people, it's got to create a hard ROI. And I love what you said, it's got to differentiate. The old days where you're just going to land a meeting because you said it.
It's not going to happen. I really don't think it's going to happen, especially now that the earnings came out about Medicare Advantage. It's like when I was leaving Humana, there was about 7 to 8 different Medicare Advantage the big ones, right?
Yes,
I'm sure there's more, but yeah, I mean, that's ballooned up. And I think the most shocking statistic to me, and I think it's just a customer behavior that I think is a little bit concerning for Medicare Advantage, is that we saw that people, because people are out there just saying, hey, we can take care of your Medicare Advantage for you, they start shopping every year. I don't know what it's like, 60% of people are just like, hey, I'll keep shopping every year. Yeah. Sometimes they don't move. There's not like a massive churn effect for every single product. But I mean, when you're shopping every single year for something like insurance, which typically, you look at home insurance or health insurance or auto insurance, it's kind of like, wow, like this is it's going to create some disruption in that market.
And it's going to be clunky for all parties. It's going to be clunky for that patient and then their family who's covered, or their spouse. You can imagine it's disruptive to just obviously the top organizations, who at Humana or UHC or if Cigna's doing it. But then, even just every step of this is and then an organization can say, we're selling into Medicare Advantage and this is the value provide. But if they lose 30% of that audience, they are going to have to pivot quickly and think about how are they going to achieve those numbers again. So I think all parties just really need to start thinking as quickly as they can about, and not get kind of in this entrenched in, this is the way we've done it. This is the way we got to, an ARR that worked for us. They're at this really integral moment where they're going to have to make some tough choices and really streamline their messaging. They're going to have to use the AI tools. It's expected now of how to, all parts of it, how to streamline messaging, how to communicate with certain people, and how to embed in workflows, Akash. I mean, as you know, it's like, if
the
it's not,
workflows are huge.
you want to sell to Humana, you want to sell to Rush where you are, or Emory where you are, they've got complex workflows. And if you just say that it's one more step for a nurse to do or an orthopod to do,
they don't want that. No one wants that. I don't want that. I'm not even in a hospital system, and I don't want that. I've got enough.
They're not seeing their kids
AI
as
tools.
I mean, they're working long hours on days that we all get off. I mean, they're working on Sundays, right? Yeah.
I think it's good. I mean, I'll end with this. Well, Damon, thanks so much. I love your insights. I think you've been in an industry long enough, and you know what it takes to get inside these plans and get inside their minds. And so I think it's great for the audience to hear those insights. And then, a couple of things I just want to land on is that, look, I think, we don't know. There could be a continued run on healthcare software this year, right? But I think our larger point is the value proposition has to connect now. And I think it's going to be tougher and tougher if you see, what the margin pressure is doing to some of these plans. And then I think the other thing for providers, I think, is, I'm just generally, I'm encouraged that some are taking real risks on how they come to market and what they stand for. And if you take the customer behavior that we talked about, we're able to call up someone.
Yeah.
But if you take general public, they have to have a brand in mind that then they say maybe, okay, let me look at their website and call a couple of people and check in on those physicians.
Yes.
That's probably the norm, right? That's the norm. That's how they're going to go about. They're still going to call people and find out, but they might say, I had this brand in mind. I'm going to go to their page and see a couple people, and then I'm going to search. So you have to think about that, and you have to think about that audience as well. If they're, high health literacy or low health literacy, what do they know? How can we just help them, right? And I think just landing on, hey, we're here for you, we support you, I think is going to get pretty generic as healthcare we get more choices in healthcare at the end of the day. So I think, so this was great.
I really appreciate it.
We're off and running. Yeah, you're welcome anytime. And I'm sure we're going to have you back. So thanks so much.
I'd love it. Yeah, please do. Take care.